Hey there, guys. So it's been a little bit of a while, but I decided to take a look at Fortnite since a new season has come out, and we're going to be taking a look at how it runs on the Ryzen 5 5500U. I like to try out the game pretty much every season just to see if there are any differences, because there are a lot of the times some pretty major mechanical changes that happen in the game, and there seems to sometimes be some effects in the overall performance of the game. But before we jump right on into it, I do want to let you guys know that on Twitch I will be streaming some Final Fantasy XIV. I pretty much have actually ended up getting really addicted to the game. I actually only really started it because I wanted to test it out on a lot of these systems, because it's one of those games that's extremely popular and a lot of people have asked me about it. But of course, I didn't want to just jump into early game stuff and kind of just be like, oh, it performs well. But then you get into late game stuff and things kind of start to fall apart. So I went absolutely hard on leveling in the game, and I will be testing it live on quite a few systems pretty much within the next day. So if you'd like to take a look at that, check out the link down below that will take you to the Twitch. Hit the follow button there and stay tuned for whenever the notification comes out for that. But of course, in terms of how Fortnite actually ended up performing, we are running this at the lowest in-game graphic settings, and we are using the performance preset. So this is DirectX 11, and the performance mode really does end up cutting down on quite a lot to get the performance numbers up. But one thing you might notice here is that on the Ryzen 5 5500U, it's not exactly giving amazing levels of performance. Now, this is at the full 1080p resolution, so we didn't adjust any resolution scaling on top of that. And before, this was actually a relatively playable experience, but I really find that these later seasons have really started to push the game towards a level of performance that I think a lot of people will really find to be not that satisfying. When there's games like Overwatch and Valorant that run significantly better on here while looking a lot of the times visually similar or better, it's kind of surprising to see that Fortnite is just doing this bad. I mean, we're barely getting it above 60 FPS average, but the 1% lows being in the 30s really drags down the overall experience. Now, Fortnite has always had 1% low problems. This is not a new thing here, but it is one of those things that it overall makes a competitive game like this really not that fun to play. We're at the point now where it's really teetering on the edge of playability, or at least comfortably. I understand that a lot of you guys are perfectly fine with anything above 30 FPS, but I do think that for a game where you are playing online against other players, where there is a competitive aspect to it, having such a low FPS can really end up dragging down the experience. And I did end up playing quite a few games on here just to be sure, because of course, because of the nature of it being a battle royale competitive game, it's very hard to consistently test. If I just told you the numbers for one match, it's really not going to paint the overall experience. So I play multiple matches, landing on different areas, and overall just trying to figure out what the overall experience of actually playing the game is like. And after quite a few matches, it really has become very clear to me that Fortnite is one of those games that really seems to struggle in these at least Vega-based APUs. I will be taking a look at it on the SRE5 Max with the Ryzen 7 5800H. That is, of course, with a TDP of 54 watts. But at least on the 5500U here with a TDP of 25 watts, which you'll notice we're not even fully utilizing, and you'll see the utilization on the GPU is also not really maxed out. We're really, at this point, hitting the limitations of what the CPU can do here. It really seems to be the bottleneck. Now, of course, you look at the CPU utilization and you'll say, well, it's only hitting around 30%. But the thing is that games aren't really designed to use all 6 cores most of the time. There are certain titles out there that will utilize pretty much all the cores that you have, but Fortnite is not one of them. And so what that means then is that the actual experience of playing the game is really limited by the fact that the individual CPU cores being Zen 2 based kind of limits it in terms of performance, relatively speaking, to something based on 11th or 12th or 13th gen from Intel, or any Zen 3 and Zen 4 based CPUs. Zen 2 is starting to really show its age in a title like this, and it's very unfortunate to see. Of course, the overall lower clock speed of the system itself isn't helping. 4 gigahertz might have been pretty impressive a few years ago, but at this point it is a very limiting factor in a title like this, especially considering that the IPC of Zen 2 is quite a few generations old now. Fortnite is really just becoming a very, very heavy game to run on PC, and it really seems like Epic is just not looking to optimize this game on PC all that much. Even on my desktop with a 3070 Ti, I still run into issues with 1% lows. Now, not as drastically as this, because in this specific match, you can see we're even going down into the high 20s. But considering that on my desktop, I am actually able to average in the hundreds of FPS, having 1% lows that are sometimes even as low as a third of the FPS average isn't exactly an inspiring experience. And it can make the overall shooting mechanics feel a lot worse than what they actually are. If this was my only way of playing Fortnite, I would really not be that into the game at all. Once you've played Valorant and things like that, where you're getting hundreds of FPS or at least comfortably above 100, coming down to an FPS experience like this just does not feel great to play. Now, of course, if Fortnite is your game, that is the game that you are in love with, it is at least giving you an above 60 FPS average. I never encountered a match where it went below that, but those 1% lows are going to be rough. You can obviously learn to play with pretty much anything, but this is certainly a very, very rough time. Now, obviously, I do need to point out that I don't regularly game in my spare time on a system like this. I use a higher end system when I'm playing with my friends, so I'm used to an overall better experience. But just because that is the case does not mean that lower end users should have to deal with a performance experience like this, especially for a title like Fortnite, which, if we're being honest, isn't exactly the best looking game out there. You can certainly make it look amazing if you activate all of these extra Unreal Engine 5 features. But with the performance API, it doesn't really look great, and you would expect it to perform better than this, but it's just not doing that. Now, would I recommend playing Fortnite on here? I don't know. It really comes down to your personal experience and your personal preference. I can just show you some of the numbers that I got on a few of the matches that I've played. That being said, though, what I can say is that I did not really have an enjoyable experience. And again, I know a lot of you guys are going to say, well, you game on a higher end system regularly, so obviously it's not going to be a great experience for you, but I'm able to play Valorant on here perfectly fine. I'm able to play Counter-Strike perfectly fine. I'm able to play Overwatch perfectly fine. Yes, I'm not hitting the same numbers that I do on my desktop. Still a great experience. And I just can't really say that about Fortnite. It really makes a lot of compromises in terms of performance. And I really don't know where that compromise is coming from, because visually speaking, with the performance API, doesn't necessarily look great. PUBG gives us some better performance in terms of 1% lows. That's really disappointing to see. But anyways, you guys make the decision on whether or not you find this to be a playable experience for you or not. Let me know what you think, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Of course, check out the Twitch down below if you're interested in seeing how Final Fantasy XIV is going to run on the 5500U. Also going to test it out on the 5800H. And if there's any other systems that you would like to see tested, let me know down below. But of course, follow that Twitch link. I'll see you guys.